it's like, say, a cruise ship in the ocean. It's like the waves in the ocean, they don't really bother the cruise ship very much.
Yeah.
But me, I felt like in my mental health, I was a blow-up life raft. It was like I just rode these waves and felt very helpless to what my brain was doing.
Yeah. Hey, Kirsten.
Hi.
Well, welcome to Navigating Life Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here.
Mhm.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
So will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am 30 years old. I'm married as of almost 2 years. I've been married. No kids. I currently employed as a caretaker, which has been really cool. You know, I've learned so much and I feel like I've grown a lot. I am here navigating life because at 17 in high school, I was diagnosed with depression and ADHD. So I had attention issues and just felt really down a lot of the time. And I just, it was so on the forefront of my mind that like I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't push it down. And so I saw a doctor, they put me on an antidepressant, and I've been basically medicated ever since. And about 6 months ago, I was doing better than I ever had in life. I was happier, healthier, but I knew there was still room for improvement.
Yeah.
And so I went to see a psychiatrist, and he actually changed my diagnosis. And so 6 months ago, I found out that I'd been living with the wrong diagnosis for about 12 years.
Wow.
And he changed the diagnosis, changed the medication, and it's my life since 6 months ago has significantly improved.
Yeah.
So the diagnosis changed to bipolar II.
Yeah. Thank you for, giving us the little bit of backstory. So will you take us on this journey of, bipolar disorder? And I know there are two kinds, right? Bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, and you were diagnosed with bipolar 2. So could you take us on that journey, how that
Absolutely. So bipolar 1 it's very stereotyped in the movies, so it's very different than what they say. Bipolar 1, basically, like, you're going to jail, you have a ton of debt, like, you're causing serious problems in your life that have, like, real consequences. Bipolar 2, instead of, like, that mania of not being able to control yourself, it is what's called hypomania. And so it's like an increased in not motivation, but energy. And so you just feel hyped up, like you wake up before your alarm. I feel personally, I get really agitated. It's like I feel productive, like I want to do a bunch of things, and I overcommit myself. And then when I swing back to depression, I really regret it because, I'm depressed and I can't live up to what my hypomanic self committed to. So I would say, just like a word picture is like, in life, it just keeps coming at you. It feels like it's going by so fast, and it feels like things happen to you and you're in a crisis and you just kind of live crisis to crisis. And once you feel like you're almost through with one, another one wipes you out. And it's like, say, a cruise ship in the ocean. It's like the waves in the ocean, they don't really bother the cruise ship very much. But me, I felt like in my mental health, I was a blow-up life raft. It was like I just rode these waves and felt very helpless to what my brain was doing.
Yeah, thank you for explaining it so beautifully. So I know, like, the mania, the manic state you're in, it's like so exaggerated, right? And people can get into trouble, like, credit card and all that stuff. And so hypo is kind of like under the radar. And
Yeah.
so, like,
It's
how did you, like, so when did you really notice that? Like you said, hey, something's wrong here.
I never realized that I had this hypomania. I I knew I was high strung. I knew I was an anxious person, but I didn't consider myself an angry person.
Mm,
I felt depressed all the time,
mm,
but it wasn't until like I got married and uh, my husband was like, "You are frustrated and annoyed with people all the time." And I just didn't connect like that irritation as anger.
mm,
But it was like, it's the same thing.
yeah,
I'm just not using that word to describe it.
right.
And, but like that emotion, like really consumes me,
Yeah,
or once did.
yeah.
And so that's basically my hope for people is that if you are on that life raft and you feel like at the mercy of the weather around you, that you don't have to live like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I don't live like that anymore.
yeah. It's very debilitating, right?
Yeah.
It's to live like that. You actually noticed it when you were in high school, right? And so, but you weren't really diagnosed until last year, right? So how did that, like all these years look like? It's been
Yeah.
that's a long time from being a junior
That's a
to
long time.
you're almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
And how did you really navigate that? Could you
Yeah.
like take us a little bit?
Yeah. So one insight that my psychiatrist gave me was that, people don't often complain about the hypomania, very similar to myself. And so they go to the doctor, they go to their primary care physician, and they're complaining about the depression. It's like they just feel low and they can't get out of bed and they're unmotivated and uninterested. And so they prescribe them an antidepressant, which is exactly what happened to me. And it's like you initially feel much better. It gives you that kickstart of like, wow, like in my experience, my head finally came above water. And then I realized I was doing really bad. Like I did not understand like the depth of despair that I was in. But then like going on medication, I was like, wow, like I need to take some really active steps to change this. So I was on antidepressants, I mean, that whole time. And he would swap different ones, like this one's not working. Well, maybe it's not the right one for you. So he'd put me on a different one and we'd increase dose. But like ultimately, I remember going to the doctor like within the last few years. And he's like, "How are you doing?" I was like, "Well, not great, but like, I don't really want to change anything.
Yeah.
Like, what else is there for me?"
Yeah.
And I left, and that was it. So, the insight from my psychiatrist was that people, often bipolar 2 patients, are diagnosed with depression first. And then he said, like, one of the key signs is if the antidepressants work really well at first and then they stop working, you very well could be bipolar 2.
Yeah.
And like that's worth pressing into.
Yeah.
And that was true for my case.
Yeah, like from the research that I was, doing for this interview, like, so, you know, I've come across that, the same thing that you were saying, like, the diagnosis is so critical, right? So having a good psychiatrist is critical as well because it's not a blood test. It's not, nothing physical.
It's hard to measure.
It's hard to measure. It's
Yeah.
like conversational based off of what you say.
Exactly. It's self-reporting.
Right.
And yeah.
It could totally go, because
Yeah.
you don't know, like,
Yeah.
you think it's depression, but
Yeah.
bipolar depression is totally different.
Yeah. And
Right.
what I'm feeling is normal, right?
Yeah.
And like you don't understand what's happening in other people's brains.
Yeah.
And so it's like your perception of what you experience changes the way you talk about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think psychiatrists, some of them are a little nuts. Like I think it's important to find a good one, look at the ratings, but mine is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's like I really trust him.
Yeah.
Like he just because he's specialized
Yeah.
in that.
So, definitely through this, podcast, we want to, bring this, we want to normalize these conversations, but also, because there are all kinds of, audiences, right? There are people that are totally against medication, totally against therapy, or, they believe one or the other. So, we want to kind of like, share it through stories, like, how it helped you, right? In your case, medication helped you.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you've said to me that it really, the difference was
night and day.
Yeah. So would you say that, like your husband Luke was the person that really kind of shed light on
Absolutely.
you?
My husband is also diagnosed bipolar II. And so that really drew us together because like nobody gets it like somebody else who's struggling with their mental health. And it's like that kind of scared me, marrying someone who also is struggling with their mental health, because like, what if we're both doing bad? Like, what should we do? And in those moments that have been tough, we've called upon his parents and sometimes go stay the weekend with them. Like, hey, we're not doing great, and we kind of need to change the scenery. And just knowing yourself well enough and asking for help.
Yes. I always say like living in awareness, right? When you're aware, that helps you to take proper steps.
Absolutely.
And so I'm glad for you that you're doing that. And I'm glad that you have an amazing support system, right? Husband, family. Do you have any other like support system, like, during this journey, like, from your junior year or from, high school till like, how did your support system look like?
I would say like the first several years, I mean, really like middle school through high school, beginning of college, looking back, I didn't have very good friends. And it's not necessarily that they were bad friends. I didn't know how to develop close relationships with people. And so it's like some of that's on me. But in college, there was a significant shift. I joined a church that had small groups, house churches, and it was like these people, they cared about me. They cared about me more than just on Sunday. And they wanted to spend time with me. And one of the most notable things was we were having lunch after church on a Sunday, and I was talking, but I'm the middle child. I'm used to being like not getting to share my piece and being talked over, and I was sharing a story, and everyone got really quiet, and I was like, I'm uncomfortable now. Like, what? And I was like, why'd y'all get quiet? And they said, because you're talking. Because we want to hear what you have to say. And I feel like that was like one of the most genuine interactions that I'd had with friends until that point. But it's like, that was super intentional. And like, it was like, I want more of this. And so I really pressed into my community and just spending a lot of time with those people and having conflict with them sometimes. There was a friend of mine, really good friend. She's in my wedding. We really butted heads at first. It was like, she's super ADHD and just kind of would have outbursts. And so I would feel interrupted and ignored. But it was like our commitment, like, we don't get along right now, but we want to. Like, it's like, I love you. I'm going to stay in this. And like that conflict resolution that I learned there has like, man, every other person I've ever interacted with later has benefited from that friendship. Like me learning conflict resolution.
That's a great story you shared, because we go to school, college, and everything is to preparing you for life, but then we really don't have practical tools on how to live life.
Yeah.
How do, when we get into a fight, how do we resolve that?
Yeah.
Friendships.
Yeah.
It is so crucial, right? When you're in high school, especially in those formative years, and you don't know how to build those friendships. Like there's no manual. Like, how do you really do it, especially for someone that's an introvert?
Yeah.
And you don't know how to, unless someone lends that hand of friendship, you don't know.
You see someone model it.
Yeah.
If you don't have good role models that you're emulating, you don't know how.
Absolutely. I mean, that's like the other big thing that I'm passionate about is modeling, right? How do we model, how do we walk the talk, right? When we're saying stuff, how do we do that? Like, friendships, like you be the first person to, maybe like you were saying, community. When you notice someone is an introvert, you step out and, lend that hand of friendship.
Yeah.
Because in high school, everybody's trying to figure themselves out. Like, they may not be mature enough, not all of them, but, to say, hey, let me step out of my comfort zone to help her out. So,
Yeah.
but
Someone did that for me, and now I want to do that for somebody else.
yes. And I love that. It's contagious, right?
Yeah.
You spread that goodness and kindness to others. And I'm glad you found that community. Kirsten, will you let's get into the topic of medication versus therapy. Can you talk a little bit about that with reference to bipolar disorder?
Yeah. I think a lot of people are hesitant to take drugs because it's a little scary.
Yeah.
I would say, if you're doing really bad, it's like it's worth trying something. Like if nothing else is working, make a change so that you can feel better. If you are going to do medication, you've got to pair it with therapy. You've got to pair it with learning coping mechanisms. Like taking a pill every day is not a cure-all. Like it doesn't fix you.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn how to communicate better and how to understand how you work and like what you need as a person to thrive, you're going to continuously have the same issues.
So you were saying essentially is, combination of medication and therapy what has helped you on,
Absolutely
feeling great and living to your full potential, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned from this experience, and what strategies have you used that helps you?
I would say in the last year and a half, I've learned that my mental health is like so directly correlated with how I'm physically feeling. It's like when you have shoes and like your socks like down, it's like off your heel and it's like bothering you. Things like that really bother me. And then like my mental health just kind of takes a downturn. Or we were at an amusement park one time and I was hot. I was probably thirsty, dehydrated, but then I was also carrying this backpack. And my husband's like, give me the backpack. Because he knew that the longer I carried that backpack, it was going to make me physically like uncomfortable and my mood would suffer because of that. And it really wasn't until the last 2 years that I made that connection at all. I would say aside from like that physical, like, okay, like let's take care of my physical body. Am I hungry? Am I tired? The next thing I would say is like your words and your thoughts. It absolutely 100% matters how you speak to yourself. And I've learned that just because you have a thought in your brain, it doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
And sometimes your brain tries to sabotage you.
Yeah.
It tells you things that aren't true. It tells you, oh, those people are whispering over there. They probably hate you. Yeah. They're probably talking about you right now.
Yeah.
And taking that thought and saying, why am I making that assumption? No. Like, I don't know why they're whispering, but why would it be about me?
Yeah.
And like replacing those thoughts with something else, with something more positive, and not like in a toxic positivity way, but like just like for me, and what's mentioned in this book, Feeling Good, is like identifying cognitive distortions and
Yeah.
like replacing it with just something that's true.
Yes.
It's like should statements. It's a really good example. Like, man, I really should have done the laundry, and now I'm beating myself up about it. And replacing that instead of should, replace it with it would have been better had I done the laundry, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And giving yourself grace
Yes.
for that.
Yes.
I would say my husband says that it's like when someone has upset me, it's like, how you like use a voice to characterize the person. And it's like, if it's someone you don't like, it's not a very nice voice, He's like, Kirsten, that's not a voice we use for friends. And it hurts because he's right.
Yeah.
It's like, I start hearing myself and like, I'm inflating like what this person has done to me.
Yeah.
Like each time I talk about it, I'm reliving the trauma.
Yeah.
It's like that person isn't thinking about me.
Yeah.
But like it's causing me further distress.
Right. Absolutely. I love that you talked about the cognitive distortions. It's like, reframing, right? It's so very important. Like, you reframe, take any circumstance or situation and say, the truth, right? Like, maybe they've had a bad day.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not, like reframe it.
Yeah.
It's
all or nothing thinking.
Yeah.
Of like, if I don't pass this test, then I'm not going to graduate, and then I'm not going to be a doctor, and I'm not going to. It's like, why would that happen?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you don't do well in this test. Like, why would it cause that chain of reactions? Like,
catastrophic.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. Like,
yeah. So I'm glad you brought that, because these are all very crucial for our mental health, right? I talk about mental fitness, like it's all about taking care of yourself. Like we know like eating right and working out is great. Like we don't think about mentally. Like that's the same thing. You practice, you cultivate, thinking positive, giving grace, all these things you practice, and then you become mentally fit, so you could be a better person, right?
Yeah. And I think I would expound on that like this mental fitness, it's helpful to, like, if you're working out, lifting weights, you have a spotter, right? So like if I am working on identifying cognitive distortions, it's helpful for me to talk it out with somebody else.
Yes.
Because in your head, it sounds reasonable. And then you say it out loud, it's like, that doesn't even make sense. Like you realize the absurdity of your thoughts that you don't realize until you speak it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because, like, be it therapy, be it a friend, it's so crucial. Like when you speak, when you talk, your thoughts and you communicate it, like you know the truth, right? Like like you said, it's absurd. Like that's ridiculous. Is that really what I'm thinking? So it sheds light. And so do you have any other things that you want to share with reference to the strategies?
Yeah, I would say like our time commitment. As Americans, we want to do everything and we've got to do it on our own. I would say my strategy for myself has been to really narrow down what's important to me. What do I really want to commit to and stick to that?
Yeah.
So like right now, I'm about at capacity for what I can commit to. So if someone asks me, hey, do you want to come do trivia night every Tuesday? The answer is probably no, because I can't do that well. And like my mental health goes down when I overcommit myself. And it affects us more than we think it does.
I love that you're sharing that, because I think it comes with age too. Like you've learned, right? Set boundaries. Your time is so precious. Like it's the greatest treasure, actually, right? So how do you manage time? How do you not put a lot of things on your plate and burn out and not do well? Like you want to do all those things. You have the desire, but you want to please people and not say no. But then how do you manage? How do you do your life well? Take one thing and do it well, right? So I'm glad that you brought that. attention a little bit, that
Absolutely.
especially I feel like, when you're young in school and college, you burn out, right?
Yeah.
Not only young, but even as adults, I feel like, you put so many things on your plate
In your
and
career.
then you're like, you're not doing them well.
Mhm.
And it's just you burn out. And that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah.
Finally, I want us to talk about, some advice from your experience with bipolar disorder, and what are some tips that have helped you that you would like to share with our audience, and that can help them.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of really good advice
Mm.
and a lot of tidbits of wisdom that have just really stuck with me over time. One of the most notable ones really early on was my English teacher in high school. Her
Mm.
name's Miss Andress, and she said that I had tried to dismiss some of my feelings because they didn't mean it. They didn't intend to hurt my feelings, so therefore, like, those feelings aren't valid. And very simply, she just said, "Your feelings are valid,
Mm.
whether they intended to hurt you or not." And that gave me so much liberation.
Mm.
It's like she probably doesn't even remember saying that,
Mm.
but I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It's like we tell ourselves that somebody else has it worse, so I shouldn't feel this way.
Mm.
Well, you do feel that way.
Mm.
And it doesn't make you feel any better to think about other people who have it worse.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they do have it worse, and I do care about them,
Mm.
but I've got to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And like, I can't care for anybody else until I care for myself.
Yes.
Like in an airplane,
Yeah.
they tell you to put your oxygen mask on you
Yes.
first so that you all can survive.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
we can't give from an empty
Mhm.
cup. Or your cup needs to be full in order for us to give. So, thank you for sharing that. I know you brought us some books. Would you like to talk about the books?
Yes. So this one is the most recent I've added. I could give you a whole reading
Yeah.
list, but this book is called Do You. It's by Shalia Reed. She is a world changer. She works for Aldine ISD. She used to be my husband's direct supervisor, and her coaching my husband has changed my life because she just gives so much wisdom.
Yeah.
And this is probably not a complete list of her
Yeah.
wisdom, but it's a really good start.
Yeah.
And I think anybody would benefit from
Yes.
it. I would say one more is this coaching habit book.
Okay.
One of the things, it's for coaching. So it's like if you have, if you're a manager and you manage people and how to do that well. But I definitely take some of those principles. I don't manage anybody.
Yeah.
But one of the things he says is stay curious a little bit longer. Like we see someone do something and we make an assumption. And to pause, you have the assumption, but to stay curious a little bit longer,
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe they didn't cut me off in traffic because they hate me.
Yeah.
Maybe they're taking someone to the hospital.
Yeah.
And just holding that space, that pause.
Yeah.
I thought that was really impactful.
Yeah. Giving a benefit of doubt. Always pausing.
Yeah.
They didn't. It really saves us so much of heartache and
Absolutely.
mental.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll definitely put all the books in the description. And I know you wanted to talk about some spoons and fork.
Yeah.
I would like for not end this without talking.
Yeah.
So would you share those?
So they call it fork theory. It feels silly, but it's kind of a silly way to talk about something that's really difficult to talk about. So a fork is, so imagine like a fork sticking in your side. Like you're not going to forget about this fork. It hurts. Yeah. So forks are, you identify them as stressors in your life. Okay. I'm running late to work. And so that's a stressor. Okay. That's a fork. And when I get to work, I spill my coffee. So now I don't have caffeine and I'm frustrated and I was late. And so it just kind of compounds. And some things you get over, but some things stick with you, especially like when a bunch build up. And so understanding and like just a self-analysis of these things are bothering me right now. And it's been really helpful for me and my husband.
Yeah.
So if, he calls me and, he wants to talk about, I don't know, something random.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, I have a lot of forks right now,
Mhm.
and I'm only at like 30% here. And I try to quantify them.
Yeah.
It's like I have all these forks, but like, how much of a stressor are they? And I think it's just a helpful way to communicate that.
Yeah.
Because, like, maybe I'm not ready to process that stress right in that moment,
Mhm.
but it's letting him know I can't have a silly conversation or talk about work, or like, he needs to know that.
Yeah.
So he's informed moving forward in that conversation.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really helpful.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like it's a very helpful tip, not just for mental health. I mean, I feel like relational,
Yeah.
right? Like to be able to communicate with your spouse or your partner to say, hey, honestly, this is where I'm at. I'm not able to make a major decision
Absolutely.
in this moment,
Absolutely.
or I can't give my full, attention to this problem. Communicating. So thank you for bringing that. Communication definitely will save a lot of trouble, right? Especially in marriage. I feel like, if you're able to communicate, that could definitely have great marriage. I know we're talking about bipolar disorder, but I don't know how we ended up here, but it's a great tip. Communication skills, right? These are all practical things on how to live well, do well,
And I would say, like, you should communicate even with children.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe you don't tell them the details, but you can tell them something's bothering me right now and I'm not fully here.
Yeah.
Because that, like, models it for them.
Yeah.
And you're open. It teaches them to be open.
Yes.
And, like, it's just authentic.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that's good for everybody.
Yeah. Just being honest, right? And have that honest conversation and your emotions to show.
Yeah.
It's okay, because we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We want to be, but we're not. So,
despite our best efforts.
Yes. Kirsten, I loved this conversation. Thank you for taking the time to come here and share your story. And thank you for being honest and vulnerable and taking us through that journey. And if it resonated with you, our audience, hey, if you're going through something similar, please comment and let us know if there is anything else that has helped you that could help our community. Help each other, and because this is a unique story. Your story, and these things have helped you, and we're all different people, and there might be something else that has helped you that we can learn from each other. So please comment and consider subscribing to this channel, and thank you for watching. I really, really appreciate that. Kirsten, thank you. Best of luck for your future. And
thank you so much for having me.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.